I'm finally getting around to making this video. It's been like a year and a half at this point. I've collected multiple videos of squirrels, and I'm going to show you some videos, some pictures and everything of this one squirrel that is an interesting story behind the squirrel. We named the squirrel Peanut the squirrel, and then we kind of started to call it something else afterwards. We didn't know if it was the same squirrel. But basically how this all started was my grandmother started to put out some food for them on her front porch. She would just kind of sit it there on the front porch. A few squirrels would come by. They would sometimes fight over it. It was always fascinating and interesting to see. She would put out peanuts. She would put out walnuts. Sometimes she would put out like cranberries and other mixed nuts and everything. And they always loved it. They really did. Now, she eventually ended up training one to actually take it from her hand. What we ended up doing is that we put the nut right on the frame of the door. And with that, the squirrel would kind of come up to the door, take the nut and walk off. So then we slowly started to kind of open the door and kind of put the peanut out, talk to it to see if it would come over to us. It was very hesitant at first. It took quite a while. But then it ended up eventually, coming over to us, taking the nut from our hand. But she would literally just run up, put her paws on the door and kind of look in, wait for her nut. I think the record was like 50 nuts in one day that my grandmother gave her. She just kept coming back and forth, just getting all of these nuts. There was also an incident with a blue jay. Blue jays also love peanuts. And the squirrel was sitting there eating the peanut. The blue jay comes by, and then another one, I wish I got a video of this, it was perfect. It was one kind of standing by, and then there was a second blue jay that came over and they scared the squirrel away, and then they just snatched up the rest of the peanuts. It's just crazy. And then there was another occurrence where Peanut was building her nest, but she still had some of the nest materials in her mouth when she came over. And it was very strange because she had all this nest materials, and then she would put it down, take the peanut and eat it right there, and then kind of put all the stuff back and kind of run off. It was very, very, very bizarre. But then it got to a point where she started to become quite aggressive. She started to throw herself onto the window to get our attention. You would hear this big thud, and she was just really, really bad at that point. So then we started to feed them out back instead. We would see her out front. My grandmother would scare her off. She would run towards the back. We would see her, and we would throw peanuts off into the yard for her to pick up. She would run up to them, just kind of throw them, and she would play a fetch with them. She would run up to them and just take them and eat them. And then she started coming up on the back porch, and it's no, you can't, because our back porch was about to get completely redone at that point, so it wasn't all that big of a deal that she was coming up, but yeah, then we got our back porch done, and we were still kind of throwing out some peanuts, and they started to briefly come up onto the new porch. But then we ended up getting a feeder out for the tree, and it had a nice little squirrel on it, and a place for you to put a bunch of nuts. So we put a bunch of peanuts in there pretty much every day, and they go in there and they eat all of the peanuts and everything, and they're just all crazy and fun and silly and everything. So they pretty much don't come up on the porch anymore. They will sometimes, look, and if they see us and we make a sound, they're kind of come running. There's sometimes 3 or 4 of them, and we're kind of just kind of throw it. And what's really funny is, it started out as a peanut, a nice cute name, and then we started noticing it, and we don't know if it was the same squirrel, but when the squirrel was out back, there was this very muscular squirrel that was very buff and muscular, and my grandmother would call it the Hulk. So that's possibly what Peanut turned into at that point, unless it's a completely different squirrel. But the Hulk was very wasn't aggressive, but certainly eating a lot of peanuts, getting very muscular and everything. And now the squirrels are kind of obese. We put a pumpkin out there for them. And then, the one just kind of sits on top and just devours it. And it's just it's so tasty, and it's so fat and obese. But anyway, so yeah, that is the squirrel video. Finally am finally making this, and hopefully you enjoy all the pictures and the videos that were in it. So you all take care, have a great one, and I will catch you all later. Bye-bye.